Hey folks, it's good to be back with you again. I wanted to provide another video and hopefully some guidance and some wisdom to people out there who are struggling with many of the same things that I'm struggling with, whether it's in business, whether it's in finances, whether it's in stock market up and down, whatever it might be. I think this video will provide information for anybody out there who is everybody out there dealing with this coronavirus pandemic and issue. I think it's important to mention, and in this video, hopefully we'll cover a lot of this and probably focus on this. I think it's important to focus on or to talk about our thoughts and to really understand what our thoughts are and where they come from and how we should deal with the thoughts. You know, there is obviously a huge range of thoughts that come into mind when you think about what's going on. Some thoughts are related to fear of actually getting sick or having a loved one that gets sick or even dies. Thoughts of having to get out, having to go to the grocery store, whatever it might be. And then thoughts about when is all this going to end? What is the end, and what is this going to look like? Thoughts about why is this happening? How did this happen? Why didn't they do this? Why did they do this? I mean, all kinds of things that can come up. And I think that if we focus on trying to have the best thought that we can have, then if we do that, then we're going to come out of this in the end much stronger mentally, physically, spiritually, and ready to get back to doing whatever we were doing before that we've been unable to do for several weeks now. And what I mean by that is, you have to focus your thoughts and your energy into whatever it is that you want to show up in your life. And to some people watching this or listening, that may be a foreign concept. And it is the case, it is true. And what that means is, if you change the way that you look at things, then if you change the way that you look at things, then the things you look at change. I almost started to say that incorrectly, but I got it right, so I'm proud of myself. So what does that exactly mean? It means that if you are watching the news 24/7 and you are staying inside, not getting out, walking around, getting some fresh air. You may have a house full of kids. You may have, maybe quarantined with someone that you don't really want to be quarantined with. And so you could have varying thoughts about all of these things that are going on. You could think, why am I having to be quarantined? What's going on with this virus? Why haven't they stopped it? Why haven't they done this? Why haven't they, there's all kinds of things that you can think about. But if you change the way you look at it and change the thoughts that you have about it, then what occurs for you will look different. So how does that work in real life? Don't spend a lot of your time watching news media. It's not going to be helpful. It's not going to change anything. The things that you need to know, I'm pretty certain you already know. And that is that there's a worldwide pandemic going on right now. That it has impacted millions of people, billions of people across the globe. And that you need to do everything you can to protect yourself and your family and to follow whatever orders you're under wherever you are. Those are really the things that you need to know. The death toll is not generally going to impact you in any way. And I don't mean to make light of the fact that people are passing away from this. That's certainly very serious and is sad. But you consuming hours and hours of news and the sensationalism and, honestly, if you turn it on one channel in the United States, you'll feel like you're in one country. If you turn it on a different channel, you're going to feel like you're in an exact opposite country. So, it's more entertainment now than it necessarily is news. And there's a lot of negativity depending on who you're watching and what channel and all that stuff. There's a reason why television shows and television viewing in general has been called programming, because when you consume it, it changes your thoughts. It changes the way you feel about things. And now more than ever, you need to make sure that you're guarding what you consume, because it can be overwhelming and it can be even addictive, I think, to want to know the information. And I think for a lot of people, for a lot of us, feeling like if we consume the information, somehow that's going to make it better. And it's not. Because unless you're, in government, unless you're working in healthcare, unless you're police, fire, other emergency personnel, there's really not anything that you can do personally to change what you're hearing about on the news. Okay? And so protect yourself from that, because what goes in, you're going to process it based on your past experiences, based on your belief system. And if you have that garbage coming in all the time, then it's going to affect you. It's going to affect you big time. And you can think about this and say, oh, well, he's just got his head in the sand. He's not facing reality. What I would challenge you to do is to focus on what you want your reality to be. Focus not on the death toll and the number of people who are getting sick, but focus on the things you can do to protect what goes into your mind and the thoughts that you have. How can you do that? You can volunteer your time while still practicing social distancing. You can focus on, if you're worried about your finances, focus on where can I cut things? Where can I change my spending habits going forward? If you have a lack of money coming in right now, you could, get a job doing something in the interim. You can take certain actions in order to make your current situation better. Because rather than sitting around and dwelling on the bad things that are happening, and I don't mean to make light of that. I deal with the same things that everybody else deals with, but you have to make sure that the way you're processing these thoughts and the issues is in a way that is healthy and is going to serve you better in the future. So what do I mean by controlling your thoughts and ultimately controlling your reality? If you sit around watching and talk to people and say, oh, however many thousand people have died and this country has this many cases and such, then you're going to see everything through the lens of this is horrible, this is doomsday, and you're going to impact your mental health long term. It certainly doesn't make light of the horrible things that are going on around the world right now. This is a lot. And to make light of that is not my point here. My point is you can control how you process things in your thoughts. So let's say that you have the thought of, this is never going to get better, my business is going to fail, and this is it. That's not a productive thought, but it's okay to have the thought. What you then have to do is be the observer of that thought and step back and go, is that really what's going to happen? Because you're convincing your mind at that point by having that thought that that is what your reality is going to be. And so everything that you do, every step that you take, every decision you make is going to be subconsciously leading to that end result. And that's what you wanted to avoid. Instead of doing that, think, this is a difficult time, and I was made to make it through difficult times. How do I know this? Because I've made it through many difficult times in the past. And maybe your story's different. Maybe the difficult times that you made it through, you totally failed. But there's not a successful person out there, whether successfully mentally, spiritually, financially, whatever, however you determine success, that hasn't failed miserably over and over and over trying to get to that point. So I challenge you to reframe the issue, not in terms of, this is horrible, my business is failing, but change how you view it and look at it as, I've been really needing a period of time to slow down and to refocus my priorities. And I've needed some extra time lately in order to really focus on finishing this project or this task or this thing. Or, there's so many ways that you can retrain your brain so that instead of you walking around worrying all the time, you are empowering yourself so that as you move through this very difficult time, as you move to the other side of this, however that looks for you. And trust me when I tell you that the way things look now is going to be very different than the way things are looking in the future, for sure. So what I would challenge you to do is really pay attention to those thoughts that you're having, because how this looks at the end, whenever this pandemic is over, the way that it's going to look for you is directly impacted, and there will be a direct correlation between your thoughts about this and how things look at the end of this for you. So a lot of people would call this, well, they've just got their head in the sand. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And that's fine. I'm not saying that there's one way to make it through any crisis. I'm not saying that at all. But if you actually sit back and think about it logically, from a logical standpoint, from a rational standpoint, do you want to feed yourself with all of the negativity and the horror and the death? Is that what you feel like is best for your psychological well-being, or would it be best for you to look at the positive aspects of what's going on? I mean, you can drive around just about anywhere unless you're in a lockdown, a total lockdown, and see families out walking together. You can hear more of the nature, hear more of a bird singing and such. And when I walk around in my yard at night, I can hear things that before I couldn't hear because there was a roar in the distance of lots of vehicles traveling on the roadway. So, it's those type things that, you can focus on those things and focus on this forced slowdown that we're all involved in, and focus on all of the positive aspects of that. Are there negatives out there related to this? Absolutely. You get to choose whether you focus on the negative or whether you focus on the positive. And you may look at me and think, that guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm losing my job. My business is failing. Whatever the situation might be. And if I told you that everything that you're going through or everything going through a growth process is easy or is painless, then I would be lying to you. And I'm not going to do that. So, the growth process is not one that is pain-free. But you can either look at it in terms of everything being a miracle or nothing being a miracle. Because frankly, if we do make it through this as a society and as a world, and we will, to me, that's a miracle. And so I would just challenge you to really focus on the positive aspects and don't get bogged down in the negative. You're being taught a lesson through this, not a lesson in terms of you did something bad and you're being punished for it, but the lesson of, you know, is my life going too fast? Am I letting my days pass by? Am I focusing on what is most important? Do I feel like I should be in a different career, or do I feel like I should be in a different job? Or, focus on your happiness. Are you happy? And I think, one of the problems is that we end up a lot of times with a lot of people out there that just aren't happy. And I think at this time, going through this phase of things slowing down and it forcing everybody inward. I mean, folks, there are people out there that cannot sit in a room by themselves for longer than a few minutes or even for a few minutes because they can't sit there and be with their own thoughts. And, there's nothing wrong with that. And it happens to a lot of us, but there's a way out of that. And, that's one of the lessons I think as a society that we are being called to learn. And that is what is most important. And when we do have a slowdown and you're forced to go inward and you can't do things like, go to the gym or go to a yoga class or go to church or congregate, go to some of the places that you would normally go where there are other people, then how does that look for you? And what does that cause to come up for you? And how ultimately in the end is that going to look? Because it's one of the things that we're being called to do, and that is to go within and to learn the lessons that we're being taught here. And I think if we miss the boat here, if we miss the point, if we miss those lessons, then I think that we're doing a great disservice to ourselves, to our families, to our kids, to our grandkids, and ultimately to the world, to society. It's time to go within. It's time to look within, and it's time to figure out why is it that people can't sit with themselves? What is it that you need to work on? What is it that you need to reprioritize? And now's the time to do that. Never in the time that I've been alive or any of the time that I've talked to people, my grandparents, my parents, whatever, this is unprecedented. It can either be unprecedented in a bad way for you, or it can be unprecedented in a good way for you and how you deal with it. And a lot of that has to do with your thoughts, because your thoughts do become your reality. It's like, if you choose to focus on the negative thoughts, then those negative things are going to continue to repeat themselves for you. And you want to focus on the positive. You want to see the positive aspects. And I would challenge you to journal about this. Sit down and write about it. Make a list of the positive aspects. Make a list of affirmations. Do those things that are going to help you to get through this. And sitting around and consuming 24/7 news. I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's just not gonna help, in my opinion. If it helps you and you're in that group, great. I would do whatever helps you need to do. But I think for most of us out there, consuming 24/7 news is very detrimental. So, point here, make a list of the positive aspects. Focus on the positive thoughts. You are not your thoughts. If you have a thought that causes you anxiety or causes you grief, don't focus on that thought. Choose a higher feeling thought. Focus on your emotions. Every emotion is real. It's okay to feel those emotions, but you get to choose, how you deal with it, and ultimately whether you're going to focus on the negativity associated with this or focus on the positive. it's not bad if you are anxious or depressed or you're having, some negative thoughts about this. That's not bad. Every thought that you have, every emotion that you have is a teaching moment for you. And so you can either focus on those things and just dwell on them and just let it run you into the ground, or you can focus on the positive and choose a better feeling thought and get yourself to that point where you can function and can make it through this, because it's not easy. But nobody said it would be easy. They said it would be worth it. And I believe 100% that on the other side of this, we should be a changed world, a changed nation. Everyone should experience change through this. And I hope that you will take the opportunity to do that. And just remember, and write this down on a piece of paper. Say this to yourself over and over and over again. Everything is always working out for me. You need to write that down, because it's working out for me and it's working out for you. And it's all about how you frame it within your brain and your mind and your head. And everything is working out for you, because you've made it to this point, and you'll make it to the end of this, and you'll be better for it in the end. If you choose to pay attention and to become awake and to focus on these lessons that we're all learning as individuals and as a society. I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much.